Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Kalliroi Stavrianou, and on behalf of Global Clinical Engineering Alliance, I'm very happy to moderate this series of webinars that aim to educate, promote collaboration, and also promote information exchange about healthcare technology, engineering, and patients' outcomes. All our webinars are recorded, archived, and also live streamed on Facebook. Following the completion of the webinar, the recording material will be accessible on our website, www.globalcea.org. Please note that at the bottom of the screen, you have a Q&A button where you can submit questions to the faculty. And those questions will be addressed towards the end of the webinar. In addition, for posting general comments, there is the option of the chat box, which is for audience interaction. Please use only the Q&A for your questions to the faculty and not the chat. GCEA is excited to announce once more the addition of the new live translation feature that will bridge the language gap and enhance your video conferencing experience. All you have to do is simply click on the Captions tab at the bottom of your screen and select the language you would like to read from the drop-down menu. Today's webinar is entitled Certification for Clinical Engineers and Service Delivery Companies. Now, I'm very pleased to give the floor to the webinar's moderator, James Ware, who is an expert in certification with many years of experience, chairperson of GCEA Membership Committee and GCEA Founders Council member. Jim, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The first speaker is Ricardo Silva, who is an outstanding clinical engineer, especially in the area of certification that I've known for a while. Ricardo is a transdisciplinary individual who has been able to breach the gap between the academic and the corporate world. He is a biomedical engineer with a PhD in neuroscience and a master's in business administration. He has worked in medical devices, health information technology, and accreditation for many years. He is past president of the Healthcare Technology Certification Commission, the organization responsible for certification of clinical engineering professionals. While at HTCC, he promoted the internationalization of the accreditation program and the development of additional certifications, including a CE-IT proposal. He is currently with the Kingdom of Jordan and the Republic of Peru in the development of their accreditation programs. Turn it over to you, Ricardo.
Thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure being here with all of you. And like Jim said, we have some time playing this game of accreditation, and hopefully we can extend it beyond the current frontiers. I'm going to keep my presentation short and to the point, but before I get started, there is a questionnaire that Kalliroi is going to share with all of us. Khalid. So here are the two poll questions. One, are you certified clinical engineer? And two, have you ever had the opportunity to participate in an accreditation program for your organization? So please answer this poll. Let's give you around 20 seconds. And we're going to use those answers as starters for our seminar today.
Let's give 5 seconds more. Okay. And here are the results.
Interesting. So are you certified clinical engineer? 14% are. 57% are interested in the certification. So that is great opening for our presentation. And the second one, have you ever had the opportunity to participate in an accreditation program? Well, most of the people have not had the opportunity. So that's great to get us started. Thank you, Kalliroi. So let me share my screen. Well, welcome again, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I'm going to be talking about credentialing. And the first thing is, why credentialing? What is the importance of credentialing? Well, credentialing provides an individual with a third-party validation, a third-party assurance that they are competent, meaning that they are capable of doing whatever it is they are credentialed for. Today, we're talking about clinical engineering, but credentialing goes way beyond clinical engineering. You could be credentialed as a plumber, you could be credentialed as an electrician, or you could be credentialed as a clinical engineer. In any case, the process is quite common. The individual needs to initiate the process. I am interested in becoming credentialed, so I apply to a process. Then there's a credentialing board that verifies if you have the minimal requirements. Then there's an evaluation, and there are different types of evaluations. Some organizations use exams. Some will actually use in-field testing. Some will base your accreditation in your knowledge. But there's an evaluation, and once the evaluation is completed, there's a decision. If you meet the criteria, you're approved. But once you are approved, the accreditation is not forever. So most accreditation programs have a maintenance and renewal process that every 2 or 3 years, you need to show the board that you've kept up to date in the state of knowledge that is required for your field. In the United States of America, and serving as a reference for most of the world, there is the Healthcare Technology Certification Commission that I had the privilege to represent not too long ago. HTCC provides this board that verifies if you as a clinical engineer candidate fulfill the criteria. Well, we had an interesting process to revive the board. There was an interesting audit that I promoted so that we could validate everything that was happening within the board, and also the proposal of expanding beyond the borders of North America, because the board actually functions with a board of examiners in the United States of America and another board of examiners in Canada. I actually started working in expanding the outreach, and currently working with Peru. They are quite advanced. They're working through their Colegio de Ingenieros, their School of Engineering. And Jordan, they are actually using a different approach because they're building from the university in accordance with their Ministry of Health. So there's many ways to go about it. Most credentialing programs, however, follow a continual education. This particular webinar, it's part of the continual education credits that you can claim if you are a certified clinical engineer and you want to maintain this credentialing. My proposal for CEIT is that we actually do this credentialing through the evaluation and the continuous improvement of continual education programs. There's a completely different way to credential professionals, clinical engineers, and other professionals, and it's by certifying or credentialing the education program. In the United States of America, and actually across the world, there's ABET, there's Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology, and ABET certifies those education programs that they meet the requirements and the quality such that graduates from those programs can directly go and work in the field for which they are certified. There's a different process for credentialing the education programs. On top of everything, we have credentialing organizations. These are the organizations that actually supervise that the credentialing boards are working accurately, that they are actually meeting the standards and requirements that they need to meet. The International Standard Organization actually has a program for credentialing of academic programs, ISO 17024. In the United States, most programs are not credentialed by ISO, but by a parent organization like the American College of Clinical Engineering here in the United States that supervise the operation of the Healthcare Technology Certification Commission. But we are liable as a credentialing organization, and we need to report to someone above. This seminar is also serving to promote and expand accreditation across the world. What we would like to see is many more accreditation bodies all around the world, fulfilling the needs and the continual improvement of all of those in our profession. Through the GCEA, we would like to help promote and expand these accreditation programs. And perhaps GCEA could become this accreditation body to help supervise and validate the quality of all of the programs that we are helping create across the world. So with that, I'm ready with my presentation. Thank you all for your participation. Back to you, Khalid.
And now we will introduce the second presenter, I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Calleroy. Our second presenter is from Brazil, which I've been to a few times and think it's an excellent country and has a very good clinical engineering program there. Although our speaker, Calvani Lolato, is an operation manager for the National Organization for Accreditation. She has a very good, a lot of experience in patient safety area, which I think all clinical engineering people are involved in, and I think would be very interested in it. She has a master's in management and methodologies of quality and safety in healthcare from Spain. She's a specialist in quality and patient care from the University in Lisbon, Portugal. She has an MBA in health management and infection control. She's a graduate of business administration and has postgraduate and short courses and themes focused on quality management, patient safety. She has fellowship in the International Society of Quality of Healthcare. She's a member of the Brazilian Society of Quality Care and Patient Safety. So Galvano, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, James, for your reception, and congratulations, Ricardo, for your presentation. I prepared some slides to share with you, and I will share and start my presentation when I will explain for you a program for clinical engineer that we have in Brazil, in ONAS. ONAS, I explain a little bit about ONA for you knows who is ONA, who is this company, and how is this company doing nowadays. First of all, sorry about my English, I will explain the best that I can for you understand it. And a little bit about ONA. ONA is responsible in Brazil for developing and management the standards about quality and patient safety. In ONA nowadays, for you know a little bit, have more than 4,000 certifications with different types of organizations. Third largest health services quality certifies in the world by number, when we consider the number. ONA has nowadays a good structure about education, and I believe that education is a future, not only the moment and present, but in the future there you have a process to guarantee and to sustainable the certification, accreditation, the organizations around the world. And nowadays ONA have more than 45,000 trained people. ONA has around grows around 15% per year of institutions, and nowadays ONA have 1,080 organization accreditations. But ONA is big part in Brazil accreditation system. together other parts, for example, founder organizations and associated organizations, certified accreditation institutions, because ONA is responsible for developing and managing the standards and requirements, and the certified accreditation institutions put in practice these standards and requirements. And surveyors evaluate the organizations, and health organizations and service providers is be part of the Brazilian accreditation system. A clinical engineer is in service providers in the manual that I want to have nowadays. Health professionals and societies be part of the Brazilian accreditation system. One important point that we consider is the contest methodology contest. Because nowadays on a completely 24 years, and in these years on a basis on the fundamentals of management and dimensions of quality to structure the standards and requirements. And each review of manual that you want to provoke on a review and actualize the fundamentals and dimensions. And the requirement and standards is structured in the triad Donabedian: structure, process, and result. This is a conceptual model that you want to use until these years, and utilize this to review the methodology. ONA nowadays is recognized for ISQA. ISQA is the International Society for Quality and Healthcare. ISQA is responsible to define the standards and criteria to evaluate the certified institutions around the world, and ONA is one of that. And the last version of the article that ISQA published, ISQA bring the concept of external evaluation. And for example, if we consider Ernest Condaman in your first initiative, almost 100 years ago, we consider the objective and the purpose of external evaluation is evaluable the services that the organizations deliver to the society and to the patients, or the products and the services that the organizations deliver to the other organizations. And this concept is we consider until nowadays. And it is so important we consider when you discuss about this point about external evaluation, like accreditation. And ISQA is a reference in this topic when ISQA structures your principle. For example, the focus about ISQA is evaluating and demonstrate the performance of organisms, institutions in the world. And one other thing that I would like to say you is the World Health Organization define external evaluation, like accreditation, as one component of a global quality strategy. It's so important when you have as important and relevant organizations approve and incentivize the accreditation around the world. It's positive to the health sector, for example, there when I explained for you the program. And other point that I think is consistent when you look to the methodology and you demonstrate a system of managed quality. For example, if you consider a structure the standards and requirements for the organizations delivery, or for the organization show your plan, how you put it, how you design your plan, and after that, how you define the control to execute this plan and to check if the plan is correct when you put in practice. And after that, if you have the conditions to ensure you have the results to guarantee or to evaluate if this result is effective or not effective, and after that you follow to improve your organizations and process. And it's so important because you see in this slide the trajectory, the journey. The methodology have a possibility to deliver a journey for the organizations. When you structure the standard requirements in the system of managed quality, you have a conditions to say the organization. So you have a journey, and in this journey, you have the results that you need actively. Don't worry if the result is about your structure, about your process, you need the standard to your process, the outcomes that you have in your organizations, there is outcomes of your process or your strategy, then you activate a culture, a big transformation. And this journey is so important when you have conditions to put in practice in your methodology, and the organization see this in the methodology and the bundle of requirements and the standards. Other point that we need to reflect about it is Okay, you have a bundle of standards and requirements, but you need to check. You need to check if the evidence is consistent or not. And the reference at ISPA bring us a triangulation when put how the organization design, how the organization imagine your work, you put in practice these works. The other point is how the organization put in practice, because you design it, now I need to check how you put in practice. Another point of this triangulation, how the organizations listen, the experience of interesting parties. Don't worry if it's the final user, all are the parties, for example, employers, other organizations that be part of this rate, or for example, these organizations are interesting parties. And the ISPA reflects about it and structure as suggestions of cycle, external evaluation cycle. You, for example, have an opportunity to start this cycle with a self-evaluation, when the organization have an opportunity to self-evaluation, how you are in this moment when you look to the requirement and standards. After that, developing a good action plans, a good strategy to put in practice, and pass to external evaluations. When the organizations pass to external evaluations, the organization will receive a report. In this report, the organization have a conditions to look for your gaps and work these gaps, put in practice actions to eliminate these gaps. And after that, this report, this is an important point, the report need help these organizations to take a decision, to make a decision, because it's important. These reports help, for example, the organizations to prioritize how you need to prioritize in this moment, how way I will follow in this moment, because the report show me this one. And the other moment when is the organizations validate, revalidate your certify or your accreditation. And in this cycle is so important, and the reference that I show you, because ONA's methodology in Brazil use the reference at ISPA. And nowadays, ONA has two manuals. One manual is for the organizations of healthcare, and the other manuals, selo de qualificação is the name in Portuguese, when you have the organization that deliver a service to the healthcare. And in this second manual is when ONA has a program to clinical engineering. But independent of the manual, repair, the focus at ONA is a patient, is a final user. ONA have intentions to guarantee or to sustainable a qualification of a healthcare sector, independent if you are an organization of healthcare or if you are a service, organizations that deliver a service in the organization. And the professional is so important, you qualify the professional too in this component. But when you look only to the clinical engineering, ONA preparing your manual a requirement and the standards when you have a conditions to see the flow of equipment management. And in this flow, you have a requirement about inventory coding, traceability, acquisition, incorporation, received equipment, installation, because in some organizations, you have, for example, condition when organizations receive equipment and don't have a good structure to installation. It's a big problem, and you need to look of this. After that, you installation the equipment, you have a calibration, preventive maintenance, qualification and validation, corrective maintenance, how will you look of this and prepare your action, electro safety test, use, because the professionals that use the equipment need to use with safety, knows how will you use with a correct form this equipment. Other steps is storage and conservation, obsolescence disposal, replacement, historical record. All these steps ONA's methodology consider in your requirements and its requirements and the standards. But ONA don't consider only the operational process. ONA provoking these organizations, clinical engineers, that these organizations have a systemic vision. You need to look for the all parties, interesting parts, the impact of your service. If I deliver to a hospital, for example, a plan, a manager of equipment, how the impact of this? How will you deliver a good service, equipment that stay working correct? It's so important. Other point that you want to have in the manual, has in the manual, and provoke the organizations, you need to present a minimum strategy. How your objective along the time, how your goal, and how the actions that you need to put in practice to achieve these goals is so important. And ONA has a section in the manual about leadership. When in this leadership, high leadership, and the leadership that stay responsible with the process. And these organizations need to structure this. And when the organization have a strategy, need to define and clarify the responsibility in this strategy and the governance. How is the responsibility of the delivery, the responsibility in the organizations about the patient safety and the impact about it. And the patient safety is connected, because when I work in a clinical engineer, I need to worry about my delivery, and if it is delivery a contribution to the patient safety. If my organization recognize how was the risks that you have in the process of managing equipment. The risk is not only when I deliver the equipment to assistant of patient safety, but in the process, the people that use this equipment. I need to recognize these risks to put in practice standards of a process or a good plan to solve these risks and evitable it's happen day by day. And when you look for all the requirements and standards, want to provoke the organizations that have results. You know the results of your process, you know the results of your strategy, but you need to look at the results to make a decision. You need to look at the results to know if you are in a good, if you have a good development or not, if you have a good results or not. It's so important you reflect about it. And the responsibility of the leadership. Because you need in your organizations define the job descriptions, how the technical competence that you need to put in practice your process in a clinical engineer, but how the technical and behavior profile that you wearing about your leadership. You need a specific skills for the leadership to put in practice your process and your plans and strategy. It's so important you look for this, and in the required in many and standards honors methodology, you have the conditions to reflect about it and to put in practice these points, because it's a guarantee that you deliver a good service or a good product in organizations of healthcare. And in this journey that we propose in ONA's methodology, the organization have conditions to transformation along the time, but not the organization, clinical engineer organizations that have this transformation. You qualify and prepare the people that stay participating in this process. In Brazil is not mandatory, the accreditation, but when you decide to participate in a process, you need to know how is the purpose, how is the objective of this idea, this project that you put in practice. You need to know the purpose, because if you don't know, how will you explain for your collaboration or interesting parties? It's important all the interesting parties knows how the objective of the organization is to participate in this process. If all the interesting parts knows who is it, how the project is it, you have more conditions to promotion, the transformations in the organizations and the all interesting parts, and put in practice innovation, improvement all the time. And it's so important because you have a conditions to achieve a good results in a future. And last point that I would like to share with you, that is so important when we put a program of accreditation in practice and or independent of a program, you look for your employer. How you are caring of those who care, and you look for your professional, you deliver for your professional an ambience that you have a psychological for safety, for example, and you look for a second victim when you have an event adverse or a failure in the organizations. It's important you look after this. And when you look at this, you guarantee a good option and a good process to this professional participates in your organizations. This is the other point that we consider in ONA's methodology. Here I bring you an example, is a team to review the manual. In this example, we review the manual that engineer clinical be part of this manual. And it's so interesting because when I started the review of your methodology and manuals, Ona invite different professionals in Brazil, different professionals that stay in different organizations of healthcare that have different experience. For example, a profession that participates in associations, profession that is put in practice or is surveyors, for example, or have jobs in the organizations, different jobs that be part of the organization that will review the manual. And this is an example, and I valorize ABCLIN because in Brazil, ABCLIN is an association that participate a lot in the ONA's methodology when ONA reviewed the manual, and together Ricardo Maranhão is representing in the review, not only in the review, but on the webinar. When we need to discuss about this topic, we have a big support with ABCLIN and Ricardo, and the other services the same. We have the other association, other professionals that participate. It's so interesting, and ONA consider this point an important point that we achieve a good result during 24 years. This is that I would like to show you. Thank you for your attention, and I stay here if you have any or other doubt. Thank you a lot for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dilvane. Thank you so much for your presentation. Before we start the Q&A session, we will launch one more poll. Okay, Dilvane, we will launch it for you.
Oh, sorry, Kelleroy, I need to put, okay. We have another question that you have a time to answer. This question is, do you understand the difference between individual and program accreditation? You have some options to answer. Yes, not sure, not, or would like to have more information. You have a little bit, some minutes to answer these questions, and we will see the results. Okay, we have the results. We have 49% say yes. Oh, interesting. Not sure, 70%. No, 4%. And we'd like to have more information, 30%. And this is the process that we stay in this webinar today to give you more information. Thank you, Kelleroy.
Okay. Let's see what we have on the question and answer right now. I guess one says here in Brazil, we have the CREA regulatory body for engineers. It'd be interesting if we see a partnership between the certification within CREA. Any answer to that?
Okay, in Brazil, I commented about ABCLIN. ABCLIN is an association to clinical engineering in Brazil. And ONAS, for example, ONAS methodology have a partner with ABCLIN, not only to construction or discuss about the methodology, but for example, in education, when we need to prepare the surveyors, we have a support with an ABCLIN. And I think we have any opportunities to discuss and to develop projects together. I agree and I say yes with your question. Thank you, James.
Follow-up to there, is there a way to have access to the ONA certification documents and manuals?
Okay. In Brazil, I will answer in Brazil. For honest methodology, nowadays, commercialize your manuals, but you have an opportunity in the website. I will put it on the chat. In the website, you have an opportunity to access free the normals, the standards. And in these standards, these documents, you have an opportunity to know the rules of honest methodology, for example. But the manual that I commented, when we have the requirement and the standards, these we commercialize nowadays. But we promote any webinars or lives when we commented about it. And I will share with you the website when you have some information about these options, but the rules is free and you have the opportunity to access all the rules that ONA have nowadays, okay?
Ricardo says, one person says, I am a biomedical engineer from Ghana. How do I get accreditation and certification?
Yes. So there's actually two very interesting questions in the chat. Right now, today, what we have is the HTCC. So anyone in the world can actually apply to the HTCC accreditation process. However, the accreditation process, even though we have a partnership that allows you to take the exam anywhere in the world, still has a very US-centered approach. So there are questions in the exam, around 20% of the questions that are very US-centered. So if you're going to apply to the HTCC exam as it stands today, you need to know that you need to be prepared to answer questions that are specific to the United States of America. That is why we want to promote international accreditation boards that will take the 80% that should be common across the world, the body of knowledge, and then develop their specific 20% that is unique to their country or region. So that's part of what we want to promote with this seminar.
Ricardo, that's very good comments. Several years ago, I helped about 10 engineers in Hong Kong take the American exam. I spent a week with them, though, giving them all of our codes and standards so that they could pass that 20% kind of thing. And they all passed. So it was have another one down here. It says, is the quantum engineering professional certification recognized internationally, or is it recognized only in the region where it's obtained? So you want to address that one, Ricardo?
I want to elaborate on that one. So the accreditation, by definition, it's a recognition by a third party that someone has the credentials that they have been recognized for. So that makes it universal. The fact that the recognition is universal doesn't mean, however, that it would provide in your country or region a competitive advantage. That would be up to you as an accredited individual to put forth that accreditation and make the difference. Let's forget about clinical engineering for a second. Let's say I certify myself as an electrician. Well, that is something that I could use to compete with other electricians. That should be part of my marketing campaign. I was certified. Someone else says that I'm good, whereas my competition is not. So it is up to you as a certified individual to promote yourself and help raise the quality of the certificate internationally.
Okay, another one here over in the chat thing says, I'm a biomedical engineer with 6 years work experience. Let me know the criteria for becoming a clinical engineer.
I actually shared the link to the HTCC. Let me share it again. And there you have all of the criteria. Yes. If you look at the answers, you will find the link to the ACC net where you have all the criteria.
Not seeing any other questions here that I that I recognize. Any other questions that somebody wants to put on? I think the presentation was very interesting. It's kind of interesting. I've been working on an abstract the last couple of weeks to present in November, and I particularly had some things that Galvani had put on with regard to patient safety. Over the years, I've worked with looking at clinical engineering being a part of the overall hospital program, not just maintaining equipment, and patient safety and all of the things that she mentioned there, they follow along that line. And, you know, especially the procurement of the equipment and being sure it's what people need. And I think this is these two presentations go together very well. Either one of you have any additional comments you'd like to make?
Oh, yes. Oh, James, thank you. I only one comment. Is so interesting where you comment, because in Brazil, I remember a little years ago, we don't have in Brazil, the people around the organizations don't recognize the paper and the responsibility, the importance and relevance about clinical engineer. And accreditation help it to promote it, to say, oh, it's so important to patient safety, because if you don't have equipment workers together, workers adequate in the hospital, you have a big problem. And in Brazil, 10 years ago, Brazil launched the program, the national program about patient safety. And then the nucleus about patient safety, one profession that needs to be part with this group is a clinical engineer. It's an excellent, because when we have an event adversity, we need to call, if involve equipment, for example, we need to involve a professional about the clinical engineer. I think it's an excellent result that we achieved in Brazil until the last years. Oh, James, thank you for this opportunity.
Jim, the only thing I would like to add is that healthcare is changing, and is changing quickly. And it's changing because technology is becoming ubiquitous, and the hospital of the future, it's going to be a hospital distributed across the world, where your room becomes the hospital bed. So we as clinical engineers need to learn how to deal with devices that would be anywhere and everywhere, and how to validate that the safety and accuracy of those devices hold whenever and wherever they are. So that is one of the big things that we have to learn as clinical engineers, how to deal with the future of the profession.
Ricardo.
Yes.
Yes, I just good morning, all of you, for me anyway. Just to say that we had a meeting here in Brazil some days ago, and in this meeting we met with several South America or Latin Americans clinical engineers, and they are, I would say, the leaders in each their own country. And one of the things we set up to do was to organize an international group to discuss and to understand the needs of the medical area, the clinical, the healthcare area, to understand, okay, what do every segment of this healthcare area expect from it. And then we are going to make a survey on hospital administrators, on companies for service delivery, on even universities. And with this knowledge, we will be able to identify what are the set of knowledge needed for clinical engineers in Latin America. And perhaps in the future, we are going to set a certification system for all those groups if they accept. Perhaps Latin America and international certification, let's just say what happens. It's just a future, long way to go.
Hopefully, it's not so that far away, Khalil.
Apparently, a lot of people are questioned about, how do they become certified in some part of the world kind of thing. And again, I think you pretty well addressed that, Ricardo. There are certification programs around the world in different countries. And, so some of them are, of course, based in their given language. There are some of them very different, but most of them really come down to the same thing that Ricardo has talked about. There is a basic knowledge, and then depend on what country they're in or what region, they have rules and such as that. And I've studied this for a long time and have worked with the IFMBE. We're working on this as well. But I think one of the things mentioned here, and Giovanna mentioned in hers, is we certify individuals, we accredit programs, and so there are different. However, in Europe they talk about registration. Sometimes in place of certification. And people talk about what is a biomedical engineer and what is a clinical engineer. Well, in many cases, they're the same thing. The terminology is different in different parts of the world kind of thing. And I think that's, something we've been working on. And I think that ultimately things like that are happening, but an awful lot is happening through the area of the GCEA, to make things better, I think, internationally. And so, any other comments before we close off?
I think the only comment, Jim, and most of the people know that, but the clinical engineering community is a very friendly, sharing, open community. So if you have any question, please reach out, that any of us would be happy to assist.
Okay. Caleroy, anything else we need to do?
No, thank you for a great webinar, a very informative webinar. All our webinars, as we mentioned, are listed on our website, and you will find also today's recording in a few hours listed there. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Congratulations for this work.
Bye.